Hey guys, tonight we are going on a journey, but maybe not the kind you'd pack a suitcase for. We're heading back to the ancient world, specifically to the Hellenistic period that followed Alexander the Great. Forget the pristine white marble statues and the high-minded philosophical debates for a moment. We're going to explore a much more complicated and frankly much darker side of that world through your eyes. You'll be a young woman whose life is about to be completely upended, thrown into the gilded cage of a royal court. It's a story of survival where the rules are unspoken and winning might just mean living to see another sunrise. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice isn't the destruction, but the silence. A profound, unnatural quiet that has swallowed the familiar sounds of your life. Just yesterday, this street echoed with the rhythmic clang of the coppersmith's hammer, the chatter of neighbors bargaining for olives, and the distant laughter of children playing by the fountain. Now, the only sound is the whisper of the wind as it lifts a fine layer of gray ash from the cobblestones, carrying with it the bitter scent of scorched wood and something else, something metallic and sorrowful. Your city has fallen, the fighting is over, and in its wake is this heavy, suffocating peace. You are huddled with what's left of your family in the central courtyard of your home. The place where you learned to walk, where you helped your mother grind grain, its sun-drenched walls now smudged with soot. You aren't royalty. You're the daughter of a moderately successful merchant who traded in Ionian wine. Your hands more familiar with clay amphorae and dusty ledgers than with silk or jewels. But in the new order of things, that distinction has ceased to matter. Then they come, not the frenzied, chaotic soldiers from the initial assault, but a different sort. They are calm, organized, their bronze cuirasses polished to a menacing gleam. They are led by a man who doesn't even bother to draw his sword. His eyes, cold and assessing, scan the small crowd of survivors. This is not a search for rebels, it's an inventory. He is a quartermaster of a conquering army, and his job is to tally the spoils of war. That's the absolute, universally understood rule of this age: to the victor go the spoils. This includes gold, grain, livestock, and of course people. His gaze sweeps past the elderly and the very young, past the men who look defiant, and then it lands on you. You try to shrink back to make yourself smaller, invisible. But it's too late. He sees youth. He sees health. He sees an unblemished good that can be presented as a tribute. He points a single, leather-gloved finger in your direction. No words are exchanged. Your mother lets out a choked sob, a sound that is immediately stifled by your father's hand. Resistance is not just futile, it's a death sentence for everyone else. You are pulled from your family's arms. The rough wool of your tunic feels flimsy and useless. You, along with a handful of other young women and boys, are marched through the ruined streets towards the Agora, the marketplace that was once the heart of your city. Now it's the headquarters of the conqueror. You see him for the first time, the king. He is not a monstrous giant, just a man, weary from battle, leaning against a displaced statue of your city's founding hero. Their conversation a low hum of a language you barely understand, a harsher, more clipped dialect of Greek than your own soft coastal tongue. You are lined up with the other selections. A cart nearby is piled high with your city's treasures, silver lyres, ceremonial tripods, and intricately painted vases that you used to admire in the homes of the wealthy. Now, you stand beside them, just another item on the manifest. This is the grim reality of conquest in the Hellenistic world. It's a demonstration of absolute power. It's a demonstration of absolute power, a way for a king to show his might not just by defeating an army, but by absorbing the very essence of a place, its wealth, its culture, and its people. Historians still debate whether these human gifts were a calculated last-ditch effort by the city's elders to appease the new ruler and prevent a wholesale massacre, or simply a brutal, straightforward plundering. The truth, as you feel it in your bones, is probably a bit of both. Your leaders may have offered you up in a desperate plea for mercy, a transaction you weren't ever consulted on. The king's gaze finally falls upon you. It is brief, impersonal, the look a man gives a fine horse or a well-made piece of pottery. He gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod to the quartermaster. And just like that, your fate is sealed. You are no longer the daughter of a merchant from a proud, now broken city. You are a spoil of war, a living trophy destined for the court of a foreign king. As you are laid away, you risk one last glance over your shoulder. The sun is setting, casting long, dark shadows across the square. The smoke from your home, from your entire world, rises into the twilight sky, and you know, with a certainty that chills you to the core, that you will never see it again. You don't have a name anymore, or rather, no one bothers to ask for it. As you're guided through the bustling, chaotic military camp, you become a simple descriptor on a list, likely scratched onto a wax tablet somewhere. Ionian female, late teens, good condition. Your identity, once a rich tapestry woven from family friendships, and the unique spirit of your home has been reduced to a stock inventory tag. This is the first and most brutal lesson in your new reality. You are no longer a person. You are an acquisition, a thing. The camp itself is a temporary city built of leather canvas and nervous energy. Its sprawls across the plain outside your ruined walls, a chaotic ecosystem of soldiers sharpening blades, armorers mending dented greaves, and cooks tending to massive, bubbling cauldrons over open fires. The air is thick with the smells of wood smoke, sweat, roasting meat, and the metallic tang of blood that seems to cling to everything. It's the smell of the machine that devoured your world. You and the other captives are herded into a cordoned-off area, watched over by guards who look at you with a profound and unnerving indifference. They are not cruel, not yet. They are simply doing a job. And right now, that job is to guard the king's newly acquired property. You see others like you. A boy with the pale, fine hair of a Thracian, his eyes wide with a terror that has yet settled into numb resignation. A woman whose dark, intricate clothing marks her as coming from somewhere much farther east, a place you've only heard of in sailors' tales. You are all pieces in a collection, a human mosaic assembled from the fragments of the king's conquests. A strange, twisted sort of camaraderie begins to form in the shared silence, a silent acknowledgement that you are all in the same sinking boat. Later, a woman who seems to be a camp follower, her face a roadmap of hard-lived years, brings you water in a rough clay cup and a chunk of dry, hard bread. The gesture is not one of kindness. It is maintenance. You are a valuable object, and like a prized vase, you must be kept from cracking. You are being preserved for your eventual destination. As you choke down the bread, you overhear two officers talking nearby. Their words drift over, cold and clear. "I'll be pleased with this one," one says, gesturing vaguely in your direction. "The queen is from the high plains. He likes the contrast. The sea folk have a different look." And then it clicks. This isn't about you. It has nothing to do with your thoughts, your fears, your quiet love for reading the epic poems your father kept. Your value lies in your exoticist. To this inland king and his court of hardy, mountain-bred Macedonians, you, with your coastal pallor and the faint scent of salt that you imagine still clings to your hair, are a novelty. You are a living, breathing symbol of his victory over a place that is different, a place that was once proud and independent. You represent a new territory, a new flavor added to his expanding empire. This is the very essence of your new role. You are a door and a gift. But you are not a gift to be given away. You are a gift the king gives to himself, to his own court, to his own legacy. Some historians argue that this practice was primarily for the king's private pleasure. a way to fill his palace with beauty and variety. But others, perhaps more cynically, insist it was a calculated political tool. Each foreign woman in the palace was a walking, talking billboard advertising the king's recent military prowess. "Look at me," she proclaimed without saying a word. "I am from a land your own king could not conquer. But my king did. Your presence is a constant, subtle humiliation to visiting envoys and a reminder of power to his own subjects." You notice that not all gifts are valued equally. There is a hierarchy, even among the objectified. You see another captive, a girl whose fingers are calloused in the distinct way of a lyre player. The guards treat her with a fraction more care, ensuring her hands are not bound. You hear them mutter that a skilled musician is a rare prize. It's a chilling realization even in this state. There are levels. Beauty is common, but a talent that can entertain the court after a long dinner is a specific, marketable skill. It's a strange, unnerving thought that your ability to perhaps sing a local sea shanty might be more valuable than your life itself. As dusk settles, the camp's energy shifts. Torches are lit, casting flickering, monstrous shadows. The orders being shouted are about breaking camp, about moving on. You realize with a fresh wave of cold dread that this is not a temporary stop. You are being packed up, along with the looted silver and the barrels of wine, to be transported. You are part of the baggage train. The journey ahead is a terrifying unknown, leading to a destination you cannot even imagine. You look up at the sky, searching for the familiar constellations that your father taught you, but the smoke from the campfires veils the stars. Everything that was once a fixed point in your universe is gone. You are adrift, your future nothing more than the whim of the man who now owns you. The journey begins not with a step, but with a lurch. You are lifted, not ungently, into the back of a large, four-wheeled wagon. The floor is covered with a bed of straw that does little to soften the hardened wooden planks beneath. A heavy canvas tarp is stretched over a curved frame, creating a dim, stuffy enclosure that shields you from the direct sun but traps the heat and the dust. You are not alone. The pale Thracian boy is there, his knees drawn up to his chest, and the silent woman from the east, who has arranged her dark robes around her with a strange and defiant neatness. A few other girls, their faces tear-streaked and smudged with dirt, complete your small, miserable company. The wheels groan, and the wagon begins to roll. The movement is jarring, a constant, bone-shaking rhythm that marks the slow, agonizing departure from everything you have ever known. Through a gap in the canvas, you watch the silhouette of your city as broken walls shrink until they are nothing more than a jagged line on the horizon, and then they are again a jagged line on the horizon, and then they are gone. The familiar scent of the sea, the salty, life-affirming air that has filled your lungs every day of your life, begins to thin. It is replaced by the smell of dry earth, of the dust kicked up by the hundreds of marching feet and hooves that make up this colossal procession. That simple change, the loss of that one familiar scent, feels like a more profound amputation than anything else. Days melt into a monotonous, featureless blur. The routine is brutally simple. You are roused at dawn by the sound of horns. You are given water and a piece of the same hard, dry bread, sometimes supplemented with a handful of shriveled olives or a sticky date. Then the wagon lurches into motion, and it does not stop until dusk. There are no conversations. The shared language is one of weary, hollow-eyed glances. The Thracian boy's terror has subsided into a silent, watchful stillness. The Eastern woman sometimes closes her eyes and hums a tune so quiet and intricate it sounds like a prayer. You learn to brace your body against the jolts, to find a rhythm in the misery. Your world has shrunk to the creaking of the axle, the shifting weight of the person next to you, and the relentless, unchanging landscape. You are traveling on one of the great arteries of the empire, a royal road, a legacy of the old Persian kings, now maintained by your new master. The road is a marvel of engineering, a wide, packed earth highway that cuts a determined path through the wilderness. Every so often, You pass a carved stone marker, a silent testament to the vastness of the king's domain. At the end of each long day, the convoy doesn't just make a random camp. It pulls into a stadtmoos, a fortified way station. These are pre-Sebastopol posts, set a day's march apart, equipped with stables, storehouses, and a well of clean, cool water that tastes like life itself. Here, the guards get fresh supplies and exchange news with the garrison. For you, it's just a brief respite on solid ground before being loaded back into the rolling cage at sunrise. As you travel deeper inland, the land changes. The gentle, rolling hills of the coast give way to harsher, rockier terrain. The olive groves are replaced by gnarled, thorny scrub. You see villages, small clusters of mud brick houses whose inhabitants come out to stare as the king's procession passes. They watch with a mixture of awe and fear. They see the disciplined lines of soldiers, the glint of the sun on thousands of spear points, and the train of wagons laden with the plunder of a conquered land. And you begin to wonder. Historians to this day debate the true purpose of these grand, slow-moving royal progressions. Were they simply the most efficient way to move an army and its loot, or was the journey itself a form of political theater as you watched the faces of the villagers? You suspect the latter. The slowness feels deliberate. This isn't a race to get home, it's a parade. Every league you travel is a demonstration of the king's power, a slow, intimidating crawl across his territories designed to remind everyone just who is in charge. Your wagon, filled with its human cargo, is a crucial part of that spectacle. You are the exotic proof of his victory, a tangible piece of a faraway land, paraded for all to see. One evening, while stopped at a stadtmoos, a guard idly inspects the wagon's axle. HES talking to a fellow soldier, his voice low and casual. You catch an name, a place you've only heard of in epic poems and traders' maps. Bella. Or perhaps it was Antioch. The name is almost mythical, a center of power so remote it might as well be on the moon. He says you should arrive within the fortnight. The word arrive lands in your gut like a stone. The end of the journey isn't a relief, it is the beginning of the true unknown. The long, grueling road has been a kind of purgatory, a mindless state of transit. But the destination is the palace. It is the king. And as the wagon rumbles on, you find yourself almost wishing the road would stretch on forever, that you could live the rest of your life in this dusty, jolting limbo, forever on the way to a place you never have to reach. The city does not appear on the horizon like a familiar town. It announces itself first as a change in the air, a low, persistent hum that you feel through the floor of the wagon long before you hear it. Then comes the scent not of salt and fish, but of a million lives lived in close quarters, a complex aroma of baking bread, livestock, open drains, and the sweet, cloying smell of incense from 100 different temples. After weeks of dusty plains on rocky hill, the sheer sensory overload is dizzying. The royal road widens, its surface now paved with smooth, well-fitted stones that lessen the wagon's jolting. You pass market gardens, lush and green, and then villas, their whitewashed walls and red-tiled roofs speaking from behind groves of cypress trees. Then you see it, Pella, Antioch, Alexandria. The name doesn't matter. It is a Hellenistic metropolis, a sprawling testament to the king's wealth and ambition. It's not built with the organic, winding charm of your old home. This is a city born of a blueprint, its streets laid out in a rigid, unforgiving grid system, a signature of the new age of urban planning. It feels less like a home and more like an encampment that has been made permanent, solidified in marble and stone. The convoy doesn't clatter through the main gates with the rest of the public traffic. You are guided towards a separate, more imposing entrance, one that leads directly into the royal Acropolis, the fortified heart of the city. The walls here are higher, the stone wider. As your wagon passes through the immense bronze-plated gates, the chaotic noise of the city is abruptly cut off, replaced by an unnerving, echoing quiet. The air inside these walls feels different. rarefied and heavy with unspoken rules. You are no longer in the king's territory, you are in the king's house. You are finally allowed to climb down from the wagon, your legs stiff and clumsy after so long. The light is blinding. Before you stands the palace. It's not a single building but a sprawling complex of structures, colonnades, and courtyards connected by manicured gardens and mosaic paved walkways. The architectural style is a bewildering fusion of Greek columns and soaring porticos mixed with Eastern influences, fluted pillars, and decorative friezes depicting mythical beasts you'd recognize. This is a visual representation of the kingdom itself, a Macedonian core layered with the cultures of the lands it has conquered. It's magnificent, but it's a cold magnificent. The scale of it is designed to make you feel small, insignificant. You and the other captives are led, not into the grand central halls, but through a series of smaller, less ostentatious corridors. The guards' footsteps echo loudly on the polished marble floors. You pass servants who avert their eyes, their faces impassive, as if you are invisible. You are being taken to the back of the house, to the place where things and people are stored. This is the Gyneceum, the women's quarters. The term itself is a bit of a historical misnomer, a holdover from classical Athens. In these vast Hellenistic palaces, it was less a single segregated area and more of a self-contained world within the palace walls. It was a labyrinth of private apartments, weaving rooms, bathhouses, and secluded, high-walled gardens where the king's female relatives, his wife, and his vast collection of concubines lived out their life. The air here is thick with the scent of perfumed oils and flowers, a stark contrast to the dust and sweat of your journey. The sounds are muted, the soft chatter of women's voices in various languages, the rhythmic clack of a loom, the gentle splash of a fountain in a hidden courtyard. It's a world of sensory softness, a velvet prison. An older woman, her face stern and etched with authority, greets your group. She is not a royal, but a high-ranking servant, perhaps a former concubine herself who has aged into a position of administrative power. She inspects you with the same dispassionate eye as the quartermaster in the field, checking for signs of illness or malnourishment from the journey. Her gaze lingers on you for a moment, and you see a flicker of something in her eyes, not pity, but a kind of weary recognition. She has seen hundreds of girls like you arrive, their faces a mixture of fear and defiance. She knows how this story usually ends. She speaks, her Greek crisp and formal. She does not tell you that you will be happy here. She does not offer words of comfort. She simply lays out the reality of your new existence. You are now in the house of the king, she says, her voice devoid of emotion. Your past is forgotten. Your life is here. You will learn the ways of this house. You will be clean. You will be quiet. You will be ready. You are then handed over to a group of female slaves who lead you away to be bathed and clothed. As you are stripped of your dusty, travel-worn tunic, the last physical link, terrifying sense of erasure. The water in the marble bath is warm and scented with rose petals, a luxury you could never have imagined. But it doesn't feel like a comfort. It feels like a purification ritual, a scouring away at your former self to prepare you for your new function. You are being polished and prepared, like a piece of furniture, to be placed within the grand design of the palace. And as you step out of the bath, wrapped in a linen towel that feels alien against your skin, you look at your reflection in the polished surface of a bronze mirror, and for a moment, you don't recognize the pale, wide-eyed stranger staring back at you. The Gyneceum is not a sorority. It's a silent, elegant battlefield where the currency is royal favor and the weapons are beauty, whispers, then patience. Your first days are a dizzying immersion into this new, complex ecosystem. You are assigned a small, sparsely furnished room in a less prominent women's quarters, shared with two other new arrivals. The silence of the space is the first thing that strikes you. After the constant noise of the journey, the quiet feels loud, heavy with unspoken tensions. The absolute ruler of this domain is not the king, who only visits as a fleeting, disruptive presence. The true authority is the Basilissa, the queen. You learned her name whispered in the corridors, always with a mixture of reverence and fear. She is the king's official wife, likely the daughter of a neighboring monarch, her marriage a cornerstone of a critical political alliance. Her position is unassailable, her children the only legitimate heirs to the throne. She is the sun around which all the other, smaller celestial bodies in the Genesium orbit. All the concubines, regardless of how favored they might be at any given moment, are merely her satellites, existing at her pleasure. You learn the first and most important rule without anyone ever saying it aloud: be invisible, especially to the queen. To draw her attention is to invite scrutiny, and scrutiny can lead to anything from a subtle humiliation to being quietly dispatched to a remote, forgotten estate. You see her only once in those first weeks, a distant figure walking in her private garden, surrounded by her own retinue of ladies-in-waiting. She is tall and imposing, draped in Tyrian purple, the incredibly expensive dye reserved for the highest royalty. She doesn't even glance in the direction of your wing of the palace. To her, you are less than a servant, you are part of the architecture. The second tier of power belongs to the established concubines, the Paulace. These are the women who have been here for years, who have navigated the treacherous currents of court life and survived. They have their own apartments, their own servants, and some have even borne the king children bastards, in the eyes of the law, but still carrying royal blood which gives them a precarious but tangible status. They are the ones who set the tone, their alliances and rivalries creating the invisible web of power that traps everyone else. Historians often struggle to fully grasp the internal politics of these Hellenistic harems, as the official records, written by men, focus on the king's actions. The day-to-day reality of the Genesium, the feuds, the friendships, the despair is largely lost to history, pieced together from fragments of poetry and veiled references in letters. It was a world run by women, for the benefit of one man, and its history was rarely written down. You are at the absolute bottom of this hierarchy. You are a Chrysonet OS, a bought with gold girl, even if you were acquired through conquest rather than cash. You are fresh meat, an unknown quantity, and therefore, you are a threat. The other women watch you. Their glances are quick and sharp, assessing your beauty, your demeanor, your potential to catch the king's eye. There is no open hostility. The rules of this place are too refined for that. The aggression is subtle. It's in the way an older concubine might accidentally take the seat you were about to occupy, or how a piece of fruit you were given is mysteriously missing from your room. It's a constant, low-grade psychological warfare designed to keep you off balance and in your place. A particularly strange and revealing bit of palace etiquette you learn involves the king's official portraits and statues. It is considered extremely bad form, almost an act of rebellion, for a concubine to be seen looking too long or too admiringly at an image of the king. It implies a personal connection, a fantasy of intimacy that you are not entitled to. Your relationship with the king is not supposed to be emotional, it's a service. Only the queen can display a wifely, public affection. This unwritten rule perfectly encapsulates the emotional tightrope you all must walk. Your days are structured and monotonous. You learn to weave, to embroider, to play simple tunes on the kithara. These are not hobbies, they are occupations designed to keep you docile and busy, to prevent idleness from breeding discontent. You eat your meals in a communal hall with the other junior women. The food is simple but plentiful. The conversations are always guarded, a minefield of potential missteps. You quickly learn to listen more than you speak, to offer non-committal smiles, and to never, ever reveal anything about your past or your true feelings. Vulnerability is a weakness that will be exploited. In this silent, gilded world, the only people who seem to move freely are the eunuchs. They are the administrators, the messengers, the guards of the Genesium, castrated to ensure they pose no threat to the royal bloodline. They exist in a strange third space between the male and female worlds. They see everything, hear everything, and their loyalty is exclusively to the king. They are the true wardens of your prison, their impassive faces betraying nothing. Learning to read their moods, to understand which one is more likely to pass on a favorable report, becomes a critical survival skill. The entire system is designed to isolate you, to strip you of your agency, and to make you utterly dependent on the whims of a man you have yet to even properly meet. The process of erasure begins in earnest. It is systematic, patient, and utterly relentless. The stern older woman who first received you becomes your primary overseer, a figure you learn to call the matron. She is not cruel in her methods. There is no shouting, no physical punishment. Her power lies in her unwavering consistency and her air of profound disappointment whenever you fail to meet her standards. It's a far more effective tool for control. Your assimilation starts with your tongue. You are to learn Koine Greek, the common tongue of the empire. But it's not just about vocabulary and grammar. It's about cadence, inflection, and accent. Your soft, lilting Ionian dialect, the very sound of your childhood, is deemed provincial, unrefined. The matron, or a tutor she assigns, corrects you endlessly. Every time a familiar, comfortable vowel sound slips from your lips, she raises a single finger. And you must start the sentence again, not the lhasa. She'd say calmly, it is ta chail ada. Speak from the front of your mouth. Be crisp. They were sanding down the unique grain of your voice, leaving a smooth, generic surface that could blend in with the chorus of the court. This linguistic re-education was a cornerstone of Hellenistic policy, a way to unite a vast multi-ethnic empire under a single cultural banner. For you, it feels like they are methodically unlearning you. Next comes the body. Your posture, your walk, the way you sit, everything is deconstructed and rebuilt. You are taught to walk with a fluid, gliding motion, your head held high but your eyes demurely lowered. You learn to sit for hours without fidgeting, to become a still, graceful part of the room's decor. It's an education in self-effacement, in occupying space without drawing attention to the act of doing so. Then there's the daily ritual of beautification. This is not about vanity, it's about maintenance of the king's property. Every morning, you are bathed by servants, your skin scrubbed with pumescent, then softened with olive oil infused with lavender or myrrh. Your hair is combed, detangled, and styled in the complex braids and coils currently in fashion at court. And then comes the makeup, a practice that feels both alien and strangely intimate. A slave girl, no older than you, applies the preparations with practiced fingers. She dusts your face and neck with a fine white powder to achieve the fashionable, almost ghostly pallor. You learn later, from a whispered conversation, that this powder is simethion, a lead-based cosmetic. It's a strange, chilling piece of information that the very thing used to make you beautiful is a slow-acting poison. It feels like a perfect metaphor for your entire existence here. A touch of carmine, derived from crushed insects, is applied to your cheeks and lips. Your eyelids are dusted with powdered minerals, green from malachite or shimmering gray from antimony, to make your eyes appear larger and more luminous. The entire process is slow, deliberate, and transforms your face into an elegant, impersonal mask. You wonder, and historians still argue about this, where the line was drawn between preparing a concubine and educating a companion. Were you merely being typhied, or were you being groomed for something more? The answer seems to be a confusing mix of both. You are taught the names and lineages of the king's family, his major military victories, the complex web of alliances and rivalries that define the kingdom. You are expected to memorize passages from Homer and the currently fashionable poets. You learn to play the lyre, not just simple tunes, but complex melodies that could, in theory, provide a pleasing backdrop to a royal dinner. It's a strange, shallow education. You learn the what, but never the why. You learn the poetry but are never invited to discuss its meaning. You learn the history but are never asked for your opinion on it. The goal is not to create an intellectual partner, like the famed Hetaira I of old Athens who could debate with philosophers. The goal is to create a more pleasing object, one that comes with a set of pre-programmed, culturally appropriate features. You are becoming a beautiful automaton, equipped with a polite repertoire of knowledge and skills, ready to be activated at a moment's notice. The final stage of your training is the most terrifying. The matron sits with you and explains, in calm, clinical detail, what will be expected of you when you are eventually summoned to the king's chambers. She speaks not of romance or affection, but of duty and etiquette. She tells you how to behave, what to say which is, preferably, nothing unless spoken to, and how to interpret the king's moods. The lesson is clear: your body is not your own. Your purpose is singular. Any personal feelings, any fear or revulsion, are irrelevant luxuries that you can no longer afford. After weeks of this relentless process, you look in the polished bronze mirror one evening. The face that stares back is a stranger's. Her skin is pale and luminous. Her hair is an intricate work of art. Her eyes, shadowed and large, hold a new kind of stillness, a learned emptiness. The defiant girl from the fallen city is gone, buried under layers of powder, perfume, and discipline. In her place is a quiet, beautiful, and compliant creature, perfectly crafted for the palace. You have been successfully assimilated. You are no longer a spoil of war. You are a work of art, finished and waiting to be displayed. And as that thought settles, a cold dread washes over you, because you know that your time in the quiet workshops of the Guinea Sea is over. Soon, you will be unveiled. Your training is complete, but your function has not yet begun. You now exist in a state of suspended animation, a strange, quiet limbo. The days resume their placid rhythm weaving, practicing the lyre, listening to recitations of poetry, but everything is now underscored by a sharp, humming tension. You are a finely tuned instrument, polished and ready, waiting in your case to be played. Every footstep in the corridor, every unexpected voice sends a jolt through the room. You and the other new women are housed together, and a peculiar, unspoken bond forms between you. It's not friendship, not truly. It's the camaraderie of soldiers in a trench, waiting for a battle they know is inevitable. You learn to read the subtle signs of anxiety in each other, a hand that trembles slightly on the loom, a voice that cracks on a high note, a gaze that stays fixed on the doorway for just a second too long. The selection process itself is a mystery, a source of endless, whispered speculation. Historians still debate how the choice was truly made. Was it a random whim of the monarch, glancing at a list of names compiled by an aide, or was it a more calculated process, with the matron subtly suggesting which new acquisitions were ready, perhaps based on reports from the eunuchs about a girl's temperament and compliance? Was there a rotation, a waiting list? You have no idea. This uncertainty is perhaps the most refined form of torture. You cannot prepare, you cannot strategize, you can only wait. Then, one afternoon, it happens. The air in the communal weaving room changes first. The low chatter dies down. The rhythmic clacking of the looms becomes sporadic, then stops altogether. A profound silence falls. Through the arched doorway, a figure appears. It is not the matron, nor a common servant. It is a eunuch you have never seen before. He is tall and unnervingly thin, dressed in robes of a deep, somber indigo that seems to absorb the light. His face is waxy and unlined, his expression a perfect, placid blank. You realize with a cold, not forming in your stomach, is the summoning eunuch. He is a specialist, a figure of almost mythical dread, whose sole purpose is to be the bearer of the king's immediate desire. He doesn't walk so much as glide into the center of the room. The soft hiss of his silk slippers on the marble floor is the only sound. In his hands, he holds not a wax tablet, but a small, tightly rolled scroll of fine papiers, tied with a purple ribbon. The symbolism is potent and clear. This is not a routine administrative message. This is a royal command. He stands for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the silent, frozen figures of the women. His eyes are like polished stones, revealing nothing, seeing everything. Every woman in the room holds her breath. Hearts are pounding in a frantic, silent chorus. You feel the blood drain from your face, your hands suddenly cold and clammy in your lap. You try to make yourself small, to press yourself back into the cushions of your seat, to become one with the shadows. Please not me, please not me, please not me. The prayer repeats itself, a frantic, silent mantra in your mind. He slowly, deliberately untees the purple ribbon. The papiers crackle softly as he unrolls it. He glances down at the script. The silence stretches, becoming thin and brittle, ready to shatter. He speaks. A single name, clipped and clear. Your name. For a heartbeat, the world stops. The sound of your own name, spoken in this place, by this man, feels like a physical blow. A collective, almost inaudible sigh escapes the other women. It's a complex sound, a mixture of profound relief for themselves and something else aimed at you, a flash of envy, of pity, of morbid curiosity. In that instant, a chasm opens up between you and them. You are no longer one of the girls in the waiting room. You have been chosen. You rise, your legs feeling like they are made of sand. Your body moves with the slow, detached grace you have been taught, an automaton responding to its programming. The summoning eunuch simply turns and glides back towards the door, expecting you to follow. As you step out of the weaving room, the matron is already there waiting. Her face is as impassive as ever. She gives a single, sharp nod. The slave girls appear at your side. The final preparations are swift and efficient. You are led back to the baths. Another warm, scented immersion, but this one feels different. It's not a cleansing, it's a consecration. You are dried with soft linen and anointed with a more expensive, more potent perfume, a heady mix of frankincense and jasmine. Your simple day dress is removed and replaced with a garment of near transparent Malaysian wool, dyed a pale, luminous saffron. It's designed to both conceal and reveal, to be alluring in its subtlety. Your hair is given a final touch, a few straight endrils artfully loosened to frame your face. The entire process is silent, methodical, and deeply impersonal. You are a sacred offering being prepared for the altar. When it is done, the summoning eunuch is waiting for. The eunuch leads you from the familiar, perfumed confines of the Guinea Sea into a different world. The corridors here are wider, the ceilings higher, and the marble under your soft slippers feels colder. This is the male side of the palace, the administrative and ceremonial heart of the kingdom. The air smells of beeswax from polished floors, old papiers from the record rooms, and the faint, metallic scent of bronze from the decorative shields and armor that line the walls. Here and there, you pass guards standing at silent attention, their faces rigid and their gazes fixed forward, pretending you don't exist. You pass scribes hurrying on errands, their arms full of scrolls, who barely give you a glance. You are an accepted, if unspoken, part of the palace's nocturnal machinery. The journey feels impossibly long. With every step, the knot of fear in your stomach tightens. The saffron-dyed wool of your gown feels impossibly thin, a fragile shield against the weight of 1,000 years of royal power. You focus on the eunuch's back, the steady, rhythmic sway of his indigo robes. It's the only fixed point in a swirling sea of terror. Finally, you arrive at a set of truly immense doors, made of dark, polished cedar and inlaid with ivory. Two colossal guards, Scythian mercenaries by their distinctive pointed caps and braided hair, stand on either side. They do not challenge your guide. They simply step back, pulling the heavy doors open with a low, resonant groan. You step across the threshold and into the king's chambers. The room is not what you expected. It's not a den of opulent, hedonistic excess. It is, first and foremost, a room of power. The space is vast, the ceiling so high it's lost in shadow. Light comes from a series of tall, ornate oil lamps that cast a warm, flickering glow on walls adorned with frescoes depicting the king's great victory, cities besieged, armies routed, triumphant processions. It's a constant, not so subtle reminder of who he is and what he has done. One entire wall is taken up by a massive map of the known world, with his kingdom at its vibrant, sprawling center. The air is thick with the scent of burning cedar and something else, a rich, spicy aroma you can't quite place. The furniture is sparse but heavy and masculine, a large table littered with maps and bronze letter openers, a few carved wooden chairs, and shelves holding scrolls and codices. This is not just a bedroom, it's an office, a command center where the fate of nations is decided. The line between the king's public and private life, you realize, is almost non-existent. And then you see him. He is not on a throne. He is reclining on a wide, low couch, a Klein propped up on a pile of deep purple cushions. He is alone. He is alone. He is older than you imagine from the distant glimpse in your ruined city, his face lined with the weariness of command, his beard streaked with gray. He is not wearing armor or royal regalia, just a simple, unadorned linen tunic. In one hand, he holds a silver cup of wine, in the other, a wax tablet on which he seems to be making notes. He doesn't look at you immediately. He lets you stand there for a long moment, a silent, saffron-clad figure in the vastness of his chamber. It's a deliberate act, a casual assertion of dominance. You are on his time and his space. He is finishing a thought, and the world, including you, can wait. You follow your training, your eyes lowered, your hands clasped loosely in front of you, your body a statue of perfect, silent compliance. Finally, he sets the tablet aside and turns his head. His eyes, you notice, are surprisingly pale, piercing blue. They are the eyes of a man accustomed to assessing everything and everyone for their use, their threat, or their value. His gaze travels over you, from the styled coils of your hair down to the hem of your gown. It is not a lustful gaze, not yet. It is the same look you saw in the Agora appraisal. He is inspecting his new acquisition, judging the quality of the item that has been delivered to him. "You are the girl from Ionia," he says. His voice is a low rumble, deeper than you expected. It's not a question, it's a statement of fact. "Yes, my lord," you whisper, the words you word reeled on, coming out automatically, your own voice sounding thin and unfamiliar in the cavernous room. He motions towards a small stool placed a respectful distance from his couch. "Sit." You obey, perching on the very edge of the stool. The silence returns, thick and heavy. He takes a slow sip of his wine, his eyes never leaving you. You feel like an insect under a piece of glass. You wonder what he sees. Does he see a person? Does he see the ghost of a city he destroyed? Or does he just see a pleasant, temporary diversion from the burdens of his empire? The historical view of these encounters is often stripped of this human tension, reduced to a simple transaction. But to be in this room is to understand that it was a complex performance, a delicate and terrifying dance of absolute power and absolute powerlessness. He gestures to the lyre resting against a nearby table. "They told me you have a pleasant voice. Sing something." It's another command, wrapped in the thin veil of a request. Your mind goes blank. All the courtly, sophisticated songs your tutor taught you evaporate in a wave of pure fear. Your hands, cold and trembling, find the strings of the instrument. And from some deep, forgotten well inside you, a melody emerges. It's not a song of heroes or gods. It's a simple, plaintive folk song from your home. A fisherman's lament about the cruelty of the sea. A song you learned from your mother. A song of loss. As the sad, familiar notes fill the grand, intimidating room, you close your eyes, and for a fleeting moment, you are no longer in a king's chamber. You are home. You finish the song, your last note hanging in the vast, silent room like a ghost. You keep your eyes closed for a moment longer, clinging to the phantom comfort of the melody. When you open them, the king is watching you with an expression you cannot decipher. It's not anger, not pleasure, just a deep, unreadable stillness. The silence stretches, and you fear you have made a terrible mistake. You were supposed to be pleasing, to offer a light, courtly diversion. You have filled his chamber with the raw, unvarnished grief of your conquered people. A sad song for a king's evening, he says, his voice a low rumble. It's not an accusation, but it's not a compliment either. It is the only one I could remember, my lord. You reply, your voice barely a whisper, your gaze fixed on the floor. Forgive me. He is silent for another long moment. Then he pushes himself up from the couch and walks towards the massive map on the wall. He runs a finger along the coastline, tracing the familiar curve of the shore where your city once stood. Ionia, he says, more to himself than to you. Your people were sailors. Stubborn. You fought well. It's a strange, detached compliment, the kind a man might give to a worthy but ultimately defeated opponent. It chills you to the bone. He is talking about the destruction of your world as if it were a challenging game of strategy. He turns back to you. Come here, your training takes over. You rise smoothly and walk towards him, your heart a frantic bird trapped in your ribs. You stop a few paces away, as custom dictates. He steps closer, and for the first time, you are near enough to smell the wine on his breath and the faint, leathery scent of the oil he uses on his beard. He reaches out, not to touch you, but to lift a single strand of your hair, rubbing it between his thumb and forefinger as if testing the quality of a bolt of silk. They said your hair was the color of dark honey, he muses. They were right, and in that moment, the full, crushing reality of your situation becomes clear. You are a collection of pleasing attributes, catalogued and reported for his consideration. Your hair, your voice, your provincial origins, they are all just bullet points on a list of your features. The encounter is not a seduction, it is a verification of goods. What happens next is a blur of sensation and dissociation. It is a quiet, almost perfunctory fulfillment of his royal prerogative. It is not violent or brutal, which is, in its own way, more unnerving. It is an act of supreme indifference. Your body is treated with the gentle, possessive care one might afford a valuable, fragile object. Your fear, your silent tears, your very presence as a thinking, feeling human being are completely irrelevant to the proceedings. Quiet corner of your mind, the place where you kept the memory of your mother's song, and you hide there. You become a spectator to your own life. Historians have long debated the nature of consent and coercion within these royal households. Some more romantic interpretations have tried to find evidence of genuine affection or even love stories between kings and their concubines. But the stark reality, as you experience it, is that the power imbalance is so absolute that the concept of consent is rendered meaningless. When one person can decide your life or death with a single word, there is no real choice to be made. Your compliance is not a gift you give it as a tribute you owe. Later, much later, as the first pale, gray light of dawn begins to filter through the high windows, he is asleep. His breathing is deep and even. He looks older in sleep, less a king and more just a weary, middle-aged man. But you feel no pity, no connection. You feel nothing but a vast, hollow emptiness. You slip from the bed, your movements silent and practiced. You find your saffron gown, a crumpled heap on the floor, and pull it on. No one has told you what to do next, but instinct guides you. You are not meant to be here when the palace awakens. You are a creature of the night, a secret that must vanish with the dawn. You find your way to the great cedar doors. They are unlatched. You slip through them and into the cold, silent corridor. The Scythian guards are gone, replaced by the regular palace sentries, who stare straight ahead, their faces impassive masks. They do not acknowledge your departure any more than they acknowledged your arrival. You retrace your steps, a ghost moving through the waking palace. The corridors are no longer empty. Servants are beginning their daily chores, sweeping floors and lighting lamps. They avert their eyes as you pass, granting you the privacy of invisibility. They have seen this scene play out 1,000 times before. When you finally reach the heavy door that leads back into the Geniceum, It feels like crossing into another country. The air is warmer here. The scents of flowers and perfume wrap around you like a familiar blanket. As you walk down the corridor towards your small room, you pass one of the older, established concubines. She is on her way to the morning baths, attended by her slaves. She looks at you, her eyes taking in your disheveled hair and the saffron gown you still wear from the night before. A slow, knowing smile touches her lips. It is not a kind smile. It is the smile of initiation, of welcome to a club no one wants to join. In that single glance, she tells you that your life has changed forever. You are no longer a new girl, a trainee. You have served your purpose. You have been used, and now you have returned. The moment you cross back into the Guinea-Siam, your status, though unspoken, has irrevocably shifted. The other women know. It's in the way they look at you now. The handful of girls you arrived with, who were your equals just yesterday, now watch you with a new distance in their eyes. Their expressions are a complex cocktail of emotions. You are beginning to learn how to parse a dash of morbid curiosity about the details you will never share, a shot of envy for the attention you receive, and a heavy dose of relief that it wasn't them. You have crossed a line they have yet to approach, and it separates you from them as surely as a physical wall. The more established concubines, the veterans of this silent war, regard you differently too. The knowing smile of the woman in the corridor is echoed in the subtle glances of others. They are no longer assessing you as a potential threat. They are cataloging you as a known quantity. You have been tried and tested. Now, the question in their eyes is a different one. Will you be a one-time novelty, or will you be summoned again in your future? Your very survival in this place hinges on the answer to that unspoken question. The matron summons you to her private office that afternoon. The room is neat, organized, and devoid of any personal touches. She does not ask you about your experience. She does not inquire about your well-being. She looks at you with her usual placid, assessing gaze. The king was not displeased. She says a statement of fact that carries immense weight. It is not praise, but it is not condemnation either. It is a passing grade. Then comes the tangible proof of your success. A servant enters, carrying a small, intricately carved wooden box. The matron opens it and gestures for you to look inside. Lying on a bed of dark velvet are a pair of gold earrings, shaped like tiny, delicate doves, and a necklace of lapis lazuli beads, the deep blue stone imported at great expense from the distant mountains of the east. They are beautiful, far more valuable than anything you have ever owned. A gift from the king, the matron says simply. You stare at the jewels, and a cold, bitter wave of understanding washes over you. This is not a gift. It is payment. It's a transaction, a neat and tidy conclusion to the service you rendered. The earrings and necklace are a tangible measure of your worth on a single night. A strange, quirky historical fact is that in some Hellenistic courts, records were kept of these gifts, almost like an accounting ledger, tracking the king's expenditures on his pleasures. Next to a notation of 1 pair gold earrings, 1 lapis necklace, might very well be inscribed on a wax tablet in some scribe's office right now. You have been compensated. The books are balanced. The matron dismisses you, and you carry the box back to your small room. The other girls watch you, their eyes fixed on the wooden box in your hands. When you open it, they gasp at the sight of the jewelry. One girl, a nervous, shy creature from a Syrian merchant family, reaches out a tentative finger to touch the smooth, cool surface of a lapis bead. They are beautiful, she whispers in awe. You feel a sudden, sharp urge to hurl the box against the wall, to watch the beautiful, expensive things shatter and scatter across the floor. You want to scream that they are not beautiful, that they are the price of your soul, but you don't. You can't. That kind of emotional outburst would be reported to the matron before the last bead stopped rolling, and it would mark you as unstable, ungrateful, and unsuitable for future service. so you force a small, tight smile and nod. You murmur your thanks for the compliment and carefully place the box on the small table beside your sleeping mat. The jewels sit there, gleaming in the soft light, a constant, glittering reminder of their true cost. In the days that follow, you notice other small changes. You are moved from the shared dormitory room into a small, private chamber. It's not luxurious, but it is yours alone. You are given a dedicated slave girl to attend to your needs. The quality of the fabric for your daily weaving is finer. These are the subtle but significant perks of favor. You are climbing the first rung of a very slippery ladder. You have gone from being an anonymous part of the general inventory to a recognized, individual asset. But this newfound status is a double-edged sword. It brings comfort, but it also brings a new kind of anxiety. The favor is not guaranteed. It is a fleeting. You see the evidence all around you, the older concubines who were once the king's favorites, who now live in quiet obscurity in the farthest wing of the Guinea Sea, their days filled with nothing but memory and the slow, inexorable slide into irrelevance. Their presence is a constant, cautionary tale. Favor is a flickering flame, and in the cold, drafty halls of the palace, it can be extinguished by the slightest breeze. A new, more beautiful face, a shift in the king's mood, a military defeat that sours his temper. Your life is now a constant, nerve-wracking gamble, and every dawn brings the terrifying question of whether your luck has run out. The Guinea Sea, which had once seemed a place of quiet, perfumed monotony, now reveals itself to you as a simmering cauldron of ambition and intrigue. With your new, slightly elevated status, you are no longer entirely outside the game. You are a minor piece on the board, and you must learn the rules quickly if you want to stay there. The war is never declared openly. It is a conflict fought in whispers, innuendos, and calculated gestures of friendship that are anything but. Your primary battlefield is the weaving room. It is the social hub of the women's quarters, the place where information is traded like rare spices. You learn the art of the passive voice, of hearing a story about a certain someone who displeased the matron and understanding exactly who is being discussed. You learn that complimenting another woman on her embroidery can be a way to form a temporary alliance, while accidentally spilling a drop of oil on her work can be a declaration of war. The currency of this realm is information, and the most valuable information pertains to the king. What is his mood today? Did he return from the hunt in good spirits? Is he preoccupied with the news of unrest on the northern border? The eunuchs are the gatekeepers of this knowledge, and you see the more experienced concubines subtly courting their favor. A small gift of sweet wine left for a particular eunuch, a kind word about his diligence passed on to the matron. These are investments that might pay dividends in the form of a timely warning or a helpful piece of gossip. You witness a masterclass in this silent warfare one afternoon. A beautiful, fiery-haired girl from Gaul, who had been summoned 3 nights in a row and was growing bold with her newfound favor, made a critical mistake. She openly mocked the accent of a seemingly quiet, unassuming concubine from Bactria, a region on the far eastern edge of the empire. The Bactrian woman didn't react. She simply lowered her eyes and continued her work. It seemed like a victory for the Gallic girl. 2 days later, a rumor began to circulate. It was a whisper, a nothing, a did you hear that spread through the Guinea Sea like a fever. The rumor was that the Gallic girl's family had a history of a particular skin ailment, something harmless but unsightly. It was a complete fabrication, of course, but it wasn't a direct accusation. It was a concern, a worry. Is it contagious? Could it be passed on? The source of the rumor wasn't traceable, but you saw the brief, satisfied glance the Bactrian woman shared with one of her allies. The damage was done. The idea, the seed of doubt, had been planted. The king, known to be a fastidious man, would not risk any imperfection, however imagined. The Gallic girl was never summoned again. She wasn't punished or sent away, she was simply dropped, her brief moment in the sun extinguished by a single, well-aimed whisper. Terrifying lesson in the power of insinuation. You also learn about the odd jobs of a concubine, the strange, specific skills that could give one an edge. There was one woman who had a remarkable talent for massaging away the king's tension headaches. Another was a gifted storyteller who could soothe him to sleep with tales of her homeland. These skills made them useful beyond their physical beauty, giving them a more stable foothold in the shifting sands of royal favor. It was a strange quirk of the system that while intellectual debate was off the table, these other, more domestic talents were highly prized. Historians often call this emotional labor, and you are seeing a raw, high-stakes version of it in action. You begin to practice your lyre with a new diligence, hoping your sad songs might become your unique, marketable niche. You try to stay neutral, to be a placid lake that reflects no allegiances. You are polite to everyone and close to no one. You share the fruit and nuts you are given, you offer compliments on weaving patterns, and you keep your opinions your fears, and your memories locked away in the most secret corner of your heart. You learn to wear your face like a mask, your smile a carefully constructed artifice that reveals nothing of the turmoil within. One evening, you are sitting in your small, private room, mending a tear in a linen tunic. You look at the golden earrings and the lapis necklace sitting in their box on your table. In the flickering lamplight, they look like cold, beautiful eyes watching you. You realize that you have already started to play the game. Your quietness, your careful neutrality, your diligent practice of the lyre, these are not acts of submission anymore. They are strategies. They are your first, tentative moves in a war you never wanted to fight, but one that you must now win, day by silent day, just to survive. The gilded cage is not just a prison, it's an arena. Then you are no longer just a captive. You are a contestant. The eunuchs are the ghosts of the palace. They drift through the corridors of the Guinea Sea, with a silent, unnerving grace, their soft-soled slippers making no sound on the polished marble. They are the permanent fixtures in a world of transient female beauty. Concubines come and go, queens can be replaced or fall from grace, but the eunuchs endure. They are the memory of the institution. The steel framework, hidden beneath the palace's silken draperies. Learning to navigate your relationship with them, you quickly realize, is more critical than befriending any of the women. They are men, yet not men. They exist in a liminal state, a third gender created by the knife for the specific purpose of serving the king without threatening his bloodline. This unique position grants them unprecedented access. They are the only males, other than the king and his infant sons, legally allowed to enter the inner sanctum of the women's quarters. They are the guards, the administrators, the messengers, the spies. They are the king's eyes, ears, and, sometimes, his hidden hand. The chief eunuch, a formidable, ancient man named Bago as a traditional name for such a role, passed down through generations, is a figure of immense power, second only to the queen and the matron within the Guinea Sea's hierarchy. You see him only rarely, a remote and imposing presence, but it is his subordinate officers, the ones who manage the day-to-day operations, that you must learn to read. There is P. Haynes, the summoning eunuch whose appearance is a harbinger of either triumph or terror. You learn to avoid his gaze, as if looking at him might somehow draw his attention. There is Hermias, the quartermaster of the Guinea Sea, a fussy, meticulous man who oversees the distribution of everything from bolts of linen to the daily rations of wine and oil. Keeping on his good side ensures that your lamp is always filled and your linens are fresh. A small, polite compliment on his organizational skills can work wonders. And then there is C. Tessias, the one you encounter most often. He is younger than the others, his face still holding a shadow of the boy he once was. He is assigned to your wing of the palace. His job is to be an observer, a silent watcher who reports on the mood, the squabbles, and the general atmosphere of his charges. He is your warden, and his reports to the matron or to Bago as could color the perception of you. In the Palace scheme ledger, you learn that interacting with them is a delicate art. To be too friendly is to seem manipulative and untrustworthy. To be too distant is to appear arrogant or defiant. the correct approach is one of quiet, respectful deference. You learn to greet Ctesias with a slight nod and a soft, "May your day be peaceful, Ctesias," before lowering your eyes. It acknowledges his presence and his authority without being overly familiar. One of the most peculiar and fascinating aspects of their role, something modern historians still find intriguing, is their position as cultural curators, because many of them were, like you, captives from conquered lands. Brought to the palace as boys, they were often highly educated. It was a eunuch who might be in charge of the king's library, or who would be tasked with teaching a new concubine the correct courtly poetry. They were the gatekeepers of the very culture that had enslaved them. You discover this firsthand. One afternoon, you are struggling with a particularly complex passage of Homer that your tutor has assigned. The Greek is archaic, the phrasing dense. Ctesias happens to be passing by your open doorway. He pauses for a moment listening. "You are putting the emphasis on the wrong word," he says, his voice surprisingly soft. It changes the meaning of the hero's lament. You look up, startled. He steps into your room, takes the papers from your hands, and reads the passage aloud. His Greek is perfect, far more elegant and nuanced than the matron's. He explains the subtle wordplay, the double meaning of a particular phrase, with the detached clarity of a master scholar. In that moment, he is not a guard or a spy. He is a teacher. It's a bewildering glimpse into the paradox of his existence, a man of immense learning and sensitivity, trapped in a role defined by his physical mutilation and his servitude. "Thank you, Ctesias," you say, genuinely grateful. You explain it better than anyone. He simply nods, a flicker of something pride sadness in his dark eyes. "To understand the master's poetry is to better understand the master," he says, and then glides away, leaving you to ponder his words. This small interaction changes your perception. You begin to see the eunuchs not as a monolithic group of faceless wardens, but as individuals, each one navigating his own complex, lonely existence. They are prisoners just as you are, albeit with longer chains and more comfortable cells. They have their own rivalries, their own ambitions for promotion within their strange, insular world. They, too, are playing a game of survival. You start to pay more attention. You notice how a carefully delivered piece of fruit to Hermias results in a better cut of meat at dinner. You see how another concubine's feigned interest in Ctesias' birthplace, and he was taken from as a child and likely barely remembers, earns her a warmer glance from him. It is a subtle, constant negotiation of power. Your relationship with Ctesias remains one of quiet, formal respect. But after his lesson on Homer, there is a subtle shift. When he passes, his nod seems a fraction less perfunctory. He is the king's eye. Yes, but you now understand that the eye is not a simple lens. It has a mind behind it, a mind with its own history, its own sorrows, and its own small, private rebellions. Weeks turn into months. Your life settles into a strange, precarious rhythm. You are summoned to the king's chambers with some regularity, not as often as the reigning favorite, a statuesque and intimidating woman from Thrace, but often enough to maintain your small private room and the grudging respect of the Genesium. You have become a part of the palace landscape, a familiar face in the ever-shifting constellation of royal favor. But this stability is a fragile illusion, and you know it. You see the constant influx of new girls, fresh faces from the latest campaigns or delivered as tribute from vassal states. Each one is a potential replacement. You see the quiet desperation in the eyes of the women who haven't been summoned in months, who feel the chill of irrelevance creeping in. In this gilded world, to be forgotten is a kind of slow death. And so a single, consuming thought begins to dominate your mind. A thought that is whispered in the weaving rooms and prayed for in the lonely darkness of the night. It is the only real path to security, the only way to transform your status from a transient pleasure to a permanent fixture. You must have a son. To bear the king, the child, would elevate your standing. It would prove your worth to the dynasty in a way that a pleasant voice or a pretty face never could. But to bear a son, that is the ultimate prize. A daughter would be a valuable asset, to be married off in a future political alliance. But a son, even an illegitimate one, carries the king's blood. He would be a prince, a potential player, in the endlessly complex game of succession, would become a person of consequence. She would have a foothold, a claim, a reason to exist beyond her ability to please the king for a single night. This biological imperative becomes the central, unspoken obsession of the Guinea-Sea. It's a strange and uncomfortable paradox, as historians have noted. In a world where these women are stripped of almost all personal agency, the one power they do possess is uterine. Their bodies, the source of their subjugation, are also their only hope for liberation, or at least for a more comfortable and secure form of imprisonment. You begin to notice the subtle rituals and superstitions that revolve around fertility. Women trade herbs and tinctures said to increase the chances of conception. They leave small offerings at the hidden shrines to Artemis or Aphrodite that are tucked away in corners of the women's gardens. You see a rival discreetly touching the belly of a statue of a fertility goddess as she passes. The competition is no longer just for a night of the king's time, it's for his seed. The pressure is immense. Every month that passes without a sign of pregnancy is a silent failure. When one of the other concubines, a sweet, quiet girl from Anatolia, confides in you that her monthly bleeding has come again, her voice a small, defeated whisper, you feel a pang of genuine sympathy. You place a hand on her arm, a gesture of solidarity that needs no words. In that moment, she is not a rival, but a fellow traveler in this strange, gilded prison, sharing the same quiet desperation. Your newfound understanding is sharpened by a constant, walking reminder of the ultimate prize. The Thracian woman, the king's current favorite, is pregnant. Her status has transformed overnight. She no longer spends her days in the weaving room. She glides through the Guinea-Sea alms gardens, a serene and untouchable deity, her swollen belly a testament to her victory. She is attended by her own small retinue of servants, who cater to her every whim. The matron herself consults with her daily. The finest fruits, the most tender cuts of meat, and special breads made with honey and poppy seeds are brought to her chambers. She is no longer just a woman, she is a vessel for a potential prince, and she is treated with the reverence and care afforded to the most sacred of royal treasures. Watching her, you finally fully understand. This is the only way out. Not out of the palace, but out of the relentless, grinding anxiety of your current existence. The son would be your shield, your fortress, your legacy. He would tether you to the dynasty. You would no longer be a disposable pleasure, you would be the mother of the king's child. The legal and social standing of these royal bastards is a complex issue that historians still debate. They were not, in most cases, in the direct line of succession. The queen's son, the legitimate heir, held that right. But these illegitimate sons were far from powerless. They were princes of the blood. They could be appointed as generals, provincial governors, or sent as high-ranking envoys. They were valuable, high-ranking pieces on the great chessboard of the kingdom. In times of instability, or if the legitimate line failed, they could even become claimants to the throne themselves, backed by their own loyal factions. To be the mother of such a potential power player was to secure your own position for life. You would be honored, respected, and, most importantly, safe. This realization changes everything. It reframes your entire existence. The nights you spend in the king's chamber are no longer just a terrifying duty to be endured. They become a mission. You are no longer a passive recipient of his attention. You are an active participant with a singular, overriding goal. The fear doesn't vanish, but it is overshadowed by a new, cold ambition. You start to participate in the fertility rituals you once observed with detached curiosity. You learn from an older, forgotten concubine which herbs are best brewed into a tea. You save the pomegranates and figs from your evening meal, eating them with a silent prayer. You learn that some physicians believe the east wind was more conducive to conception, a bizarre piece of folk medicine that nonetheless dictates which evenings are filled with more desperate hope than others. Your body, which you had come to see as a source of shame and subjugation, becomes a project. You focus on your health not for beauty's sake, but for the sake of readiness. You walk in the gardens, you eat well, you try to calm your frayed nerves with the repetitive, meditative motion of the loom. You are preparing the ground, hoping a seed will take root, and you think about the child, this phantom son who holds the key to your future. It is not a warm, maternal longing. You don't picture a baby's face or imagine holding a small hand. Your thoughts are strategic. You envision a young boy being trained in arms, a handsome youth standing beside his royal father. You envision yourself, older, clad in robes of honor, watching him from a position of unassailable security. It is a dream of power, not of love. One night, alone in your chamber after the king has dismissed you, you stand before the polished bronze mirror. You look at your own reflection, at your pale, familiar face, but you see something else. You see a possibility of vessel. You place a hand on your own flat stomach. The touch is not one of affection or hope, but of grim, steely determination. This is the battlefield now, and you will do whatever it takes to win. In the Guinea Sea, where every day feels the same, true connection is a rare and dangerous commodity. Friendships are temporary alliances, and confidences are weapons that can be used against you. And yet, human nature abhors a vacuum. In the midst of the silent warfare and the crushing loneliness, small, fragile bonds sometimes manage to form in the most unexpected ways. You find this solace not with a fellow Greek or someone of similar status, but with the quiet woman from the East. Her name, you learn, is Amy Tiz, and she comes from Bactria, a remote province nestled in the shadow of the Hindu Kush Mountains. She was not a spoil of war like you, but part of a diplomatic tribute, a living seal on a treaty between her father, a local satrap, and the king. Her fate is the same as yours, just wrapped in a more polite package. Your connection begins not with words, but with a shared silence. She occupies the chamber next to yours, and you often find yourselves as the last two women awake, sitting in the small, moonlit garden that your wing of the palace overlooks. For weeks, you simply sit on opposite stone benches, the space between you filled with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the quiet understanding of your shared predicament. She does not speak much Koine Greek, and you know not a single word of her native tongue. This linguistic barrier, which should be a wall between you, becomes a strange kind of freedom. You are liberated from the tyranny of careful, calculated conversation. You cannot gossip. You cannot accidentally reveal a weakness. All you can do is be present with one another. One night, she begins to hum. It's the same intricate, wandering melody you first heard in the wagon on the long journey to the palace. It's a sound filled with a profound and ancient melancholy, a sound that speaks of vast, empty plains and towering, snow-capped mountains. It is the sound of homesickness. You don't have a song to match its beauty, but you have your own memories. You pick up a fallen twig and, in the soft dirt of a planter box, you begin to sketch. You draw the shape of your city as harbor, the curve of the bay, the familiar outline of the lighthouse that stood at its entrance. You sketch the fishing boats with their triangular sails, a sight so common it was etched into your soul. Amy just watches, her dark, almond-shaped eyes following the movement of the twig. When you are done, she points to the sketch and then to you, a questioning look on her face. You nod. My home, you whisper, the word feeling strange and foreign on your tongue. She understands. She takes the twig from you and, on her side of the planter, she begins to draw. Her drawing is not of the sea, but of mountains. Sharp, jagged peaks that seem to tear at the sky. She draws a fortress perched on a high cliff and, below it, a rider on a powerful horse. Her home. This becomes your secret language. You communicate through these ephemeral sketches in the dirt, sharing fragments of the worlds you have lost. You tell her about the taste of fresh olives, and she tells you about the sweetness of dried apricots. You describe the chaos of the agora, and she depicts a silent, starlit desert. It's a deeply intimate form of communication, more honest and revealing than any of the stilted Greek conversations you have in the weaving room. It is a nightly ritual of remembrance, a way of insisting to each other that you were once more than this, that you had lives and names and homes. This friendship is a tiny rebellion. It's a rebellion against the palace's attempts to erase your past and homogenize your identity. The matron wants you to be a generic, Hellenized court lady, but in the quiet of the garden with Amytis, you are still the girl from the Ionian coast, and she is still the daughter of a Bactrian nobleman. There's a curious historical debate about the extent of cultural exchange within these Hellenistic harems. While the official policy was one of assimilation into Greek culture, it's impossible that these women from dozens of different lands didn't share pieces of their own heritage with one another. They would have exchanged recipes, folk remedies, lullabies, and stories. The Gyneceum, for all its oppressive intent, likely became a quiet, unaccompanied melting pot where Eastern and Western traditions mingled in secret. Your friendship with Amid is a microcosm of that phenomenon. One evening, as you are sketching the shape of a constellation you used to watch from your rooftop, Amid touches your arm. She points to the sky and then hums her sad, beautiful song. You look up at the stars, the same cold, distant stars you see every night. But for the first time since you arrived, they don't feel alien. You realize that you and Amid, though born a world apart, have slept under the same moon and dreamed under the same canopy of stars. It's a small, simple thought, but it feels profound. It's a fragile thread of connection in a place designed to keep you apart. And in the suffocating loneliness of the palace, that single thread feels as strong as an anchor. Your life, and the lives of everyone in the palace, are governed by a single, powerful, and utterly capricious force, the king's mood. His whims dictate the atmosphere of the entire court as surely as the sun dictates the seasons. The Gyneceum, insulated as it is like a finely tuned seismograph, detecting the faintest tremors from the epicenter of his temper. You learn to read the signs. If the king returns from a successful hunt, his face flushed with exertion and triumph, a palpable wave of relief washes over the palace. The kitchen staff will prepare a feast, wine will flow more freely, and the evening will be filled with music and laughter. On these nights, his visits to the women's quarters are more frequent, his manner more generous. A well-timed song or a flattering comment might turn you a new silk shawl or a silver bracelet. The days of sunshine and bounty. But there are other days. Days when a messenger arrives from the frontier bearing news of a border skirmish gone wrong, or when a diplomatic envoy from a rival kingdom delivers a thinly veiled insult. On these days, a thundercloud of black mood descends upon the king, and the entire palace holds its breath. The corridors fall silent, servants scurry past with their eyes on the floor. The guards at his door seem to stand straighter, their faces grim. On these days, the Gyneceum becomes a place of fear. The summons, when it comes, is not a mark of favor but a terrifying gamble. The king is not seeking pleasure, he is seeking a distraction, a release for his frustration, an object upon which to vent his spleen. It might manifest as a cold, biting sarcasm, a dismissive wave of the hand, or a terrifying, volcanic rage that can be triggered by the smallest perceived slight dropped cup, a nervous stammer, a song that fails to please him. You witness the aftermath of one such night. A young woman, a pretty, vivacious girl from Lydia who had been gaining in favor, is summoned on a day when the king has learned of a grain shipment being lost to pirates. She returns to the Gyneceum, in the pre-dawn hours, not with the quiet pride of a chosen woman, but with the shame of a dismissed servant. She is not physically harmed. But a deep, ugly bruise darkens her out of the room. Worse than the bruise is the look in her eyes, a shattered, hollowed-out terror. She is sent away the next day, not as a punishment, but as an administrative cleanup. The king does not wish to see her face again, as it would remind him of his own loss of control. She is dispatched to a remote country estate, her brief career at court over, her life ruined by a storm she had no part in creating. This absolute power, the ability to project his internal state onto the world and have it become reality for others, is the defining characteristic of Hellenistic monarchy. The concept of the philosopher king, a ruler governed by reason and logic, was a lovely ideal discussed in the Athenian schools. The reality of these post-Alexandrian kingdoms was often closer to tyranny. The king was the law. His emotions had political consequences. A bout of indigestion could delay a treaty, a hangover could result in an execution. Historians often have to read between the lines of official court chronicles, which are always glowing, to find hints of this emotional volatility. A sudden flurry of gifts to the army might indicate the king was feeling insecure, while the abrupt retirement of a courtier often meant he had fallen foul of the royal temper. You learn survival strategies. You and the other women develop a sophisticated intelligence network. You learn to interpret the gossip from the kitchens, the stables, the barracks. Did the king eat well at his midday meal? Did he argue with his generals? Did his favorite horse throw a shoe? Every scrap of information is a piece of a puzzle, a weather forecast that helps you prepare for the coming climate. Your friendship with Amy becomes a crucial part of this. She has a connection to one of the palace gardeners, a fellow Bactrian, who sometimes overhears conversations from the royal council meetings held in the open-air peristyles. You, in turn, have developed a quiet rapport with the slave girl who serves you, who hears the whispers of the other servants. You pool your fragments of information, creating a more complete, if still imperfect, picture of the king's state of mind. One evening, you learn from Amy's gardener that the king is furious over a delayed tribute payment from a northern tribe. You know a summons is likely, as he often seeks solace in the Guinea Sea. When angered, you brace yourself, but you also prepare. Instead of your usual sad sea shanties, you spend the afternoon practicing a rousing, martial tune on your lyre, a song celebrating a past victory of one of his ancestors. It is a gamble, a calculated risk. When the summons comes, and you are brought before him, the air in his chamber is thick with menace. He is pacing, his face a mask of thunder. He barely acknowledges you. Music, he snaps, a sharp, angry command. Your hands are trembling, but you begin to play. You play the song of victory, its strong, confident chords filling the tense silence. He stops pacing. He turns to look at you, surprised. He listens, his head cocked. As the song reaches its triumphant crescendo, you see the tight knot of anger in his shoulders begin to loosen. A flicker of pride replaces the fury in his eyes. He is remembering his power, his lineage, his strength. When you finish, he grunts, a sound that is almost a sign of approval. Play it again, he commands. The storm has not passed, but you have navigated your small boat through its fiercest winds. You have not just survived his mood, you have helped to shape it. It is a terrifying, exhilarating realization of the precarious power you can sometimes wield. The summons comes on an ordinary afternoon. The king is in a placid mood, a rare spell of calm between diplomatic crises and border disputes. You are brought to his chambers, and the evening unfolds with a quiet, almost domestic familiarity that is, in its own way, more unsettling than his rages. He speaks to you, not with commands or pronouncements, but with actual questions. He is examining a newly acquired artifact, a finely wrought silver drinking horn from a Scythian chieftain. As he turns it over in his hands, he asks, "In your land, what do you drink from?" The question is so simple, so unexpected that it catches you completely off guard. For months, you have been a function, a service, a collection of pleasing attributes. Your past has been a forbidden country, a place you only visit in your secret, silent moments with Amides. To be asked about it openly feels like a trick, a test. You hesitate, your mind racing through your training. What is the correct answer? What does he want to hear? We use KY likes, my lord. You stammer, referring to the wide, shallow to handled wine cups common throughout the Greek world. Simple ones made of clay, painted with scenes of the sea. He nods, seemingly satisfied. But then he presses further. And the wine, is it true the wine from Chios is better than the wine from Lesbos? My merchants argue about it endlessly. And just like that, you are on more solid ground. You are the daughter of a wine merchant. This is a language you know. You find yourself speaking, your voice gaining a quiet confidence. You explain the difference in taste, how the soil and the sea breeze affect the grapes. You talk about the sweet, fragrant wines of your home island versus the drier, more robust vintages from the mainland. You speak of things you haven't allowed yourself to think about for what feels like a lifetime. The king listens, genuinely interested. For a fleeting, surreal 10 minutes, you are not a concubine. You are an expert, a source of information. You are your father's daughter. He asks about the olive harvest, about the methods for salting fish, about the local myths tied to the sea gods. With each question, a piece of your buried self is excavated and brought into the light. You feel a strange, forgotten sensation, the feeling of being seen as a person with a history, with knowledge, with a life that existed before these palace walls. This is a rare and intoxicating experience. It's a glimpse of a different kind of power. Not the power of seduction or fertility, but the power of individuality. It's a flicker of what the famous Hetaira of classical Athens might have experienced, women who were valued for their minds as much as their bodies. But you know this is different. This is not a conversation between equals. It is a king, momentarily bored, examining the interesting backstory of one of his possessions. The moment is ephemeral. He soon grows tired of the conversation, his attention span shifting as it always does. He dismisses the topic with a wave of his hand, and the evening proceeds along its more familiar, silent path. The brief connection is severed. You are once again an object, a service. But something has changed within you. The experience leaves a lingering afterglow, a dangerous taste of what it feels like to be yourself. When you return to the Guinea Sea that night, the silence of your small room feels different. It feels more profound, more lonely. The mask you wear every day feels heavier, the carefully constructed persona of the quiet, compliant concubine more suffocating. This experience, historians suspect, was a double-edged sword for women in your position. To be allowed a moment of individuality was a profound psychological relief, a confirmation that you still existed beneath the surface. But it also sharpened the pain of your daily reality. It highlighted what you had lost and what you could never, ever regain. It was a reminder that you were a thinking, feeling person trapped in a system that demanded you be neither. In the days that follow, you find yourself clinging to that brief conversation. You replay his questions in your mind. You savor the memory of speaking about your home without fear. It fuels a quiet, internal rebellion. You start to consciously nurture your own memories, not just as a source of comfort, but as an act of defiance. You practice your old Ionian dialect in the privacy of your room, whispering the soft, familiar words to yourself. You recall the recipes your mother taught you, the faces of your childhood friends, the exact shade of the sky over the harbor at sunset. You are rebuilding your inner world, a secret garden that no one can touch. The palace owns your body, it dictates your actions, it controls your future. But in the quiet moments in the small, locked room of your own mind, you are beginning to reclaim your soul. It's a dangerous game. To remember too much is to invite a grief that could crush you. But to forget completely is to let them win, to allow the final erasure of the person you once were. You are walking a tightrope between memory and survival, and the balance is terrifyingly precarious. The king, in his casual curiosity, has given you a gift far more precious and far more dangerous than any jewel. He has reminded you of yourself. The Guinea Sea, is a garden where favor is the sun, and without it, everything withers. You learn this lesson with a brutal, disorienting speed. The shift is subtle at first, so subtle you think you might be imagining it. A week goes by without a summons, then another. The respectful nods from the servants become a little less deep. The quality of the fruit left in your room is not quite as fine. See Tessias, the eunuch, glides past your door without his usual brief acknowledgement. The anxiety starts as a low hum, a background noise of dread that slowly grows louder until it's a screaming silence in your mind. You redouble your efforts. You practice the lyre until your fingers are sore. You wear your most becoming gowns. You try to catch the matron's eye in the weaving room to show her that you are still diligent, still compliant, still worthy. But it's like trying to catch smoke. Then you see her, the new one. She is from Egypt, the place of ancient gods and mythical wealth. She is not a captive, but a high-born guest sent by the Ptolemaic court in Alexandria. A political gesture of goodwill. She has skin the color of warm sand, eyes lined with kohl in the dramatic style of her homeland, and she moves with a languid, feline grace that makes the rest of you look like clumsy farm girls. She is exotic in a way you could never be. Your Ionian heritage, once a novelty, now seems provincial and plain by comparison. Her name is Serene, and she becomes the new son of the Guinea Sea. The king is utterly captivated. The summonses for her are frequent, almost nightly. The gifts that arrive at her opulent suite of rooms are legendary chests of fine linen from the Nile Delta, jewelry crafted from Nubian gold, and, it is whispered, the baby crocodile, to be kept as a pet in her private garden pool. This last detail, whether true or not, is a masterstroke of court gossip, cementing her status as a creature of rare and fascinating strangeness. It's a classic palace phenomenon, what historians call exoticist fetish, where the value of a person is directly tied to their perceived otherness. Your own small trickle of favor dries up completely. The summonses stop. You have been replaced. The descent is swift and merciless. You are moved from your private chamber back into a shared room, this time with two other women who are also in the forgotten category. The slave girl assigned to you is reassigned to Serapion as burgeoning household. You are back to eating the standard fare in the communal hall. The silence that greets you from the other women is no longer one of respect or envy, it is one of pity, mixed with a cold calculation that your fall solidifies their own precarious positions. You are no longer a rival. You are a ghost, a walking cautionary tale of the fickleness of royal favor. The psychological toll is immense. You feel a constant, churning mix of emotions, humiliation, a bitter, corrosive jealousy of the new favorite, and a terrifying, paralyzing fear of the future. What happens now? Will you just fade into the background, living out your days in this quiet, gray obscurity until you are old, or will you be deemed surplus to requirements and quietly sent away to some remote, dusty estate to live out your days in exile? The nights are the worst. You lie on your simple mat, staring into the darkness, your mind a relentless tormentor. You replay every interaction with the king, searching for the mistake you must have made the moment the tide turned against you. Was it the song you sang, the story you told? Was your smile not bright enough, your compliance not absolute enough? The truth, you know in your heart, is that you did nothing wrong. It had nothing to do with you at all. A new, shinier object came along, and the old one was simply put back on the shelf. This lack of reason, this sheer, arbitrary nature of your fall, is the cruelest part. In this dark, lonely period, your friendship with Amit becomes your only lifeline. She too is in the shadows, her Bactrian novelty long since faded. She understands your despair without you needing to voice it. She doesn't offer false hope or empty platitudes. She simply sits with you in the gardeness, a silent, comforting presence in the darkness. She brings you a piece of sweet, sticky honey cake she has somehow procured, a small act of kindness that feels monumental. One evening, as you stare blankly at the loom, your hands idle, Amy does gestures for you to follow her. She leads you to a forgotten corner of the Guinea to the rooms of the truly old, the women who were the concubines of the king's father. Here, in this quiet backwater of the palace, you find the strange, unexpected solace of the completely forgotten. The competition is over for them. The anxiety is gone. All that is left is survival memory and the slow, patient passing of time. You realize with a chilling clarity is your future. You have been relegated to the archives of the king's affection, a footnote in the history of his desires. The sun has moved on, and you are now living in the deep, cold shade. In the cold shade of royal neglect, a strange and unexpected kind of knowledge begins to flourish. Stripped of the ambition and anxiety that came with being in favor, you enter a new phase of your palace life. You are now among the forgotten, the women who haunt the Guinea-Siam's periphery. It is a world of quiet routines of long, featureless days, and you soon discover of a different, more practical kind of wisdom. Your guide into this world is a woman named Lyra. She was once a celebrated beauty from Corinth, a favorite of the king in his youth, long before you, or even the formidable Thracian woman arrived. Now, she is a stooped figure, with threads of silver in her dark hair and eyes that hold a deep, weary intelligence. She is a graduate of the school of hard knocks, a survivor who has seen dozens of favorites rise and fall like the tides. She is the unofficial matriarch of the Forgotten Wing. She finds you one afternoon, sitting listlessly in the garden, and places a small clay bowl in your hands. It's filled with a pungent, green smelling paste. For the ache in your head, she says, her voice raspy, from not sleeping, rub it on your temples. You do as you're told, and the cool, tingling sensation of the herbal balm does, in fact, soothe the tension headache that has been your constant companion for weeks. It's a small thing, but it's an opening. Lyra sees in you a younger version of herself, and she takes you under her wing, not out of pity, but out of a sense of shared experience. She begins to teach you what she calls the useless arts, the skills that have no value in the competitive marketplace of royal favor, but are essential for surviving its aftermath. She teaches you about herbs, not the ones for fertility, but the ones for healing. You learn which leaves, when crushed, can soothe an insect bite. You learn which roots, when boiled, can ease a troubled stomach. You learn how to make a poultice for a bruise and a tea to encourage sleep. The palace has its own physicians, of course, but they are for the king, the queen, and the current favorites. For the forgotten, self-reliance is the only option. This practice of folk medicine within the harem is a fascinating, historically obscure subject. These women, gathered from all corners of the known world, would have brought their own local traditions with them. The Guinea-Siam would have been a repository of a vast and diverse pharmacopoeia, a secret knowledge passed from woman to woman. It was a science born of necessity, a way for them to care for themselves and each other when the official world ignored them. Lyra also teaches you a more dangerous kind of knowledge. In a hushed whisper, she points out a certain glossy, dark-leafed plant growing in a shaded corner of the garden. That one, she says, her voice slow, brings the final sleep. A small amount brings madness, a large amount, peace. It is good to know where it grows, not to use it, just to know. To know you have a door you can open, even if you never walk through it. The chilling implication hangs in the air between you. The knowledge itself is a form of power, a final, desperate veto over your own fate. Beyond medicine, you learn the art of palace recycling. Nothing is wasted in the Forgotten Wing. A gown that is too frayed to be worn is carefully unraveled, its threads raised pun and red-eyed to be used in new embroideries. The pits from olives are saved and polished to be strung into simple beads. Leftover bread is crushed into crumbs to thicken a stew. It is a microcosm of female ingenuity, a domestic economy running in the shadows of the king's extravagant wastefulness. You discover you have a talent for these useless arts. Your hands, once trained for the delicate work of the lyre, prove adept at grinding herbs and mending torn fabric. Your mind, once filled with the anxiety of pleasing the king, finds a strange peace in the quiet concentration of these practical tasks. You are creating, healing, and sustaining, not for an audience, but for yourself and your small community of forgotten sisters. It's a different kind of purpose, smaller and more tangible than the grand ambition of bearing a prince, but it is real. You, Undamit, join this circle, finding a quiet place within it. Amit is, with her knowledge of Eastern plants, contributes her own expertise, showing Lyra how to make a soothing balm from dried rose petals. You, with your clear, steady hand, become the go-to person for applying these remedies. You form a small, functioning society based on mutual support and shared knowledge. One evening, a new girl, freshly fallen from favor, after only a few weeks, comes to your room, her face pale and her eyes red from weeping. She has a fever, born more of despair than of any real illness. You don't offer empty words of comfort. You simply do what Lyra taught you. You brew her a cup of calming chamomile tea and sit with her, humming a quiet song, until she finally drifts off to sleep. In that moment, you feel a sense of agency you haven't felt in years. You cannot change her fate, but you can ease her suffering. In the world of the forgotten, this is the only kind of power that matters. The news arrives not with a triumphant blast of trumpets, but as a ripple of excited whispers that quickly swells into a tidal wave of commotion throughout the palace. The Thracian woman, the one whose pregnancy had been the source of so much envy and speculation, has gone into labor. For the first time in months, the Gyneceum, from the most favored suite to the most forgotten corner, is united in a single, shared focus. The hierarchy of the palace reasserts itself with brutal clarity. The queen, the Basilissa, arrives in the Thracian's chambers, not as a gesture of sisterly support, but as the official witness for the crown. Her presence is a political necessity, ensuring there can be no question of the child's parentage, no possibility of a swapped baby. It is her duty to verify the legitimacy of any potential rival to her own son's inheritance. She is accompanied by the matron and the chief eunuch, Bagoaz, the king's personal physicians, men who have never before set foot in the Gyneceum. Yuma's inner sanctum, are summoned and wait anxiously in an antechamber. The rest of you are irrelevant, relegated to the role of a distant, unseen audience. You are cleared from the main corridors and confined to your wings. The normal routines of the day dissolve. No one is weaving, no one is practicing the lyre. The women gather in small, tense groups, their ears straining for any scrap of news. The air is thick with a mixture of anticipation, jealousy, and a morbid, almost theatrical excitement. This is the most important event that can happen within these walls, and its outcome will affect everyone. Use it with Lyra Undamit is in the quiet garden. Lyra, who has seen this drama play out twice before during her long tenure, is cynical and calm. It's a lot of noise for a simple matter of biology, she mutters, expertly grinding herbs in a small stone mortar. Let's hope for the girl's sake it is quick. And for all our sakes, let's hope it's a boy. A girl just complicates things. Another mouth to feed and a dowry to pay. A boy. Her words are stark but true. A prince, even a bastard one, relearns the power dynamics of the court. He becomes a new center of gravity, and his mother is instantly elevated to a position of immense, untouchable influence. She would be granted her own lavish household, a handsome income, and a permanent, respected place at court. She would be a queen in all but name. The hours drag on. Servants scurry back and forth, their faces grim and tight-lipped, carrying basins of hot water and stacks of fresh linen. From the Thracian's distant chambers, you can sometimes hear a low, guttural cry, a raw, animal sound of pain that cuts through the palace's refined atmosphere. Each cry sends a fresh wave of shivers through the listening women. It is a visual reminder of the physical cost of this ultimate ambition, the bloody, painful reality behind the dream of power. As dusk begins to fall, a new sound emerges, the thin, wailing cry of a newborn infant. A collective gasp goes through the Guinea Sea. A hush falls, a profound and expectant silence. Everyone is waiting for the announcement. Boy or girl, the fate of the mother, the mood of the king, and the future political landscape of the kingdom all hang on that one biological fact. A eunuch finally appears at the main archway of the central courtyard. He strikes a bronze gong, its deep, resonant tone calling for attention. He unrolls a scroll and reads the proclamation in a loud, clear voice. By the grace of the gods, a son has been born to our mighty king, a prince of the blood. Let there be rejoicing. A wave of carefully orchestrated celebration erupts. The women break controlled cheers. The official performance of joy begins. But beneath the surface, you can feel the complex undercurrents of genuine emotion. There is envy, sharp and bitter, from the other ambitious concubines. There is a quiet satisfaction from those who have allied themselves with the new mother, and from you and the other women in the forgotten wing, there is a strange sense of closure. The race is over. The prize has been won. The board has been reset. The Thracian woman, now the mother of a prince, has ascended to a different plane of existence. She is no longer one of them. You watch from a distance in the following days as she receives tribute, as powerful courtiers who once ignored her now bow to her. She has achieved the impossible. She has escaped the gilded cage by building herself a smaller, more powerful cage of her own within it, plated not with gold, but with the unassailable armor of motherhood. For you, the event is a confirmation of your own irrelevance. The brief, flickering ambition you once harbored of achieving the same goal is extinguished for good. You will never hold that kind of power, and as you watch the lavish celebrations, the distribution of wine and roasted meat to the palace staff, the triumphant smile on the king's face, you don't feel jealousy anymore. You feel a profound and soul-crushing weariness. The great game of fertility has been won, but not by you. You are, and will remain, a spectator. And in the silent world of the Guinea Sea, there is no sadder fate. Life in the palace settles into a new kind of normal, one defined by the presence of the infant prince. His cries, his needs, his schedule, these now dictate the rhythm of the court in a way even the king's moods never did. The Guinea Sea has been reoriented around this new tiny son. The Thracian mother, now known by the honorific title of Lady Thea, presides over her own mini-court, a world of wet nurses, servants, and fawning sycophants, your existence fading further into the background. It is during this period of quiet obscurity that a new figure arrives at the palace. He is not a warrior, a diplomat, or a captive. He is a philosopher, a stoic from Athens named Zeno, invited by the king to adorn his court with a touch of intellectual gravitas. The king, secure in his military power and with a new heir to ensure his dynasty, now craves the one thing he cannot conquer, a reputation for wisdom. He wishes to be seen not just as a great king, but as a philosopher king in the tradition of the great rulers of old. Zeno is a striking figure. He is old, with a long white beard and robes of a simple, undyed wool that stand in stark contrast to the colorful silks of the courtiers. He moves through the palace with a serene, otherworldly calm, his eyes holding a clarity that seems to see through the ostentatious displays of wealth and power to the anxious, grasping souls beneath. The king holds symposiums, grand intellectual evenings, where Zeno is the star attraction. These are not the drunken, debauched parties of old Athens. They are carefully staged theatrical performances of high-mindedness. The king and his chief ministers recline on their couches, sipping watered-down wine, and listen as Zeno discourses on logic, virtue, and the nature of the universe. They ask what they hope are insightful questions, trying to impress him with their philosophical depth. You, of course, are not invited. But you hear about these evenings from the servants who clear the cups and the musicians who play softly in the background. Then one day, you see Zeno yourself. He has been given permission to walk in the outer gardens of the Guinea Sea, the areas you and the other forgotten women frequent. It is seen as a safe space for him, free from the political intrigues of the main court. He is deep in conversation with one of the king's adolescent sons from a lesser, now deceased concubine. The boy is his student. You are sitting with Lyra, mending a tunic when he passes. He is explaining something to the young prince, and so the truly wise man understands what is within his control and what is not. Zeno is saying, his voice calm and resonant. We cannot control the actions of others, the whims of fortune, or the health of our bodies. We can only control our own thoughts, our judgments, and our responses. True freedom is not the power to command others, but the power to command oneself. The words strike you with the force of a physical blow. You look at the king, your master, a man who commands armies, who decides life and death with a word, who rages when a shipment of grain is late. By Zeno's definition, this man who holds the entire world in his fist is not free. He is a slave to his own passions, a prisoner of his own power. Then you look at yourself, a concubine, a captive, a piece of property with no rights and no future. And yet, your thoughts, your judgments, your responses, in your friendship with Amides, in your quiet acts of healing with Lyra, in the secret garden of your memories, have you not been exercising a small, desperate kind of control? Have you not been building a fortress inside yourself where the king cannot enter? This is a profoundly subversive idea. The official philosophy of the court is one of absolute monarchy, of a divinely ordained hierarchy where the king's will is supreme. But the philosophy the king himself has imported to burnish his own image preaches a different, internal kind of power, one that is accessible to anyone, even the lowliest slave. It's a delicious, dangerous irony. Historians have often wondered about this contradiction in Hellenistic courts. Did these powerful kings truly understand the revolutionary potential of the philosophies they so eagerly embraced? The likely answer is no. They saw it as an intellectual accessory, not a genuine guide to living. You see the other side of the philosopher king every day. You see him cooing over his infant son, his face a mask of paternal pride, while completely ignoring the existence of his other children by less favored women, like the very boy Zeno is teaching. You hear the stories from the servants about his lavish spending on new mosaics for his bathish, while the soldiers on the frontier are complaining of late pay. He is a man who collects wisdom like he collects exotic animals, keeping it caged and on display, never allowing its true nature to roam free and challenge the foundations of his world. You never speak to Zeno. You are far too insignificant for that. But his presence, and the ideas he brings, plants a seed in your mind. You begin to see the palace not just as a web of power and intrigue, but as a grand stage of human folly. You start to observe the frantic striving of the courtiers, the desperate ambition of the other women, the king's own emotional turmoil, not with fear or envy, but with a new, detached clarity. You are a prisoner, yes, but Zeno has given you a new lens through which to view your prison. And through that lens, you start to see that you may, in some small, secret way, be freer than your master. The end comes, as it often does, without warning. It is not a dramatic siege or a palace coup. It is a mundane, almost comical accident. The king, in his mid-50s, but still vain about his physical prowess, insists on participating in a ceremonial hunt for a wild boar. In a moment of reckless bravado, he gets too close. The wounded, enraged animal turns on him, its tusks finding a gap in his bronze cuirass. The injury is not immediately fatal, but it is deep and unclean. The palace is thrown into a state of quiet, controlled panic. The best physicians are summoned. They apply poultices. They chant incantations. They offer sacrifices to Asclepius, the god of healing. But the fever sets in, a relentless, burning fire that no remedy can quench. The wound becomes infected, and the king begins to fade. For a week, the kingdom holds its breath. The Guinea Sea becomes an echo chamber of rumor and fear. All routines cease. The women gather in anxious clusters, their faces pale with uncertainty. Your own small circle, you, Amy Tiz, and Lyra huddles together, watching and waiting. Your fate, and the fate of every person in this palace, is tied to the frail, fading heartbeat of the man in the royal bedchamber. Pray for a swift recovery, Lyra mutters, though her tone suggests she expects the opposite. A contested succession is a bloodbath, and we, she gestures to the opulent, silent rooms around you, are the first things to be swept away in the cleanup. She is right. Your entire existence is predicated on the king's life and his personal desire for you. You are his property. The historical precedents are terrifying. Some former kings' harems were inherited by the new ruler. Others were pensioned off to remote estates, and in the most brutal successions, they were simply massacred, a neat and tidy way of erasing the old regime and any potential claimants to the throne, no matter how illegitimate. The queen is now the most powerful person in the palace. She controls access to the dying king. She and her faction of loyal courtiers and generals are already maneuvering, consolidating their power to ensure her son, the legitimate heir, ascends the throne without challenge. Lady Thea, the Thracian mother of the infant prince, has locked herself in her apartments, protected by guards loyal to her own small but wealthy faction. The lines are being drawn for a potential civil war. Then one gray, rain-swept morning, the deep, mournful toll of the palace's largest gong echoes through the courtyards. It tolls once, twice, a third time. It is the signal. The king is dead. A wave of official, state-sanctioned mourning begins. Professional mourners are brought in, their theatrical wails filling the air. The women of the Guinea Sea are expected to weep and tear at their clothes, a performance of grief for a man who was their master, their provider, and their terror. You go through the motions, your face wet with tears that are real, but not for the reason anyone thinks. You are not crying for the king. You are crying for yourself, for the terrifying uncertainty of the dawn that is about to break. The palace, once a place of rigid order, descends into a state of barely controlled chaos. You see courtiers who were allies yesterday avoiding each other's eyes. You see guards being quietly replaced, their loyalties questioned. The chief eunuch, Bagoaz, moves through the turmoil with a grim, purposeful calm, his allegiance sworn not to a man, but to the institution of the monarchy itself. He is ensuring the transfer of power is as smooth as possible. You feel like a small, terrified mouse trapped in a house whose owners are in the middle of a violent, destructive argument. Your world has been built on the singular foundation of the king's life. Now that foundation has crumbled, and the entire structure is threatening to collapse on top of you. You find Amyt in the garden. Her face is a mask of stoic resignation, a cultural trait you have come to admire. But her hands, clasped in her lap, are trembling. You sit beside her, and for once, you have no sketches to draw, no stories to share. You just sit in a shared, silent terror. In the distance, you hear a new sound, the sharp, rhythmic clang of hammers on metal. It's the sound of the armorers working through the night to repair helmets and sharpen swords. It is the sound of preparation for a conflict that everyone fears is coming. The king is dead. Long live the king. But the question that hangs in the air like the stench of death is which one and what will happen to the women he left behind. The interregnum, the period between the king's death and the formal accession of his successor, is a dangerous and fluid time. Power is a vacuum, and the entire court rushes to fill it. The palace becomes a chessboard, and the pieces are moving with terrifying speed. You and the other women of the Guinea Sea are not players, you are the board itself, the ground upon which the game is fought, and you fear you will be trampled in the process. The queen, a formidable, unruthless woman, you have only ever seen from a distance, emerges as the dominant force. Her son, the crown prince, is only a boy of 14, old enough to rule in name but too young to wield real power. She will be his regent, the true hand on the tiller of the state. Her primary goal is to eliminate all potential rivals, to secure her son's throne beyond any shadow of a doubt. Her gaze, and the gaze of her faction, falls upon the greatest threat, the infant prince, the son of Lady Thea, the Thracian woman, who just weeks ago was the most powerful woman in the Guinea Sea Eon, is now its most endangered. Her opulent apartments become a fortress. Her small contingent of loyal guards stands watch at her doors, their spears facing out towards the rest of the palace. She has powerful backers, generals who served with her father, wealthy merchants with ties to her homeland, but they are outnumbered by the queen's established network. The palace is split into two armed camps. The tension is unbearable. It's a cold war fought in the corridors and courtyards. You see servants whispering to guards. You see eunuchs carrying secret messages. You see alliances shifting like sand. Every meal could be poisoned. Every friendly word could be a lie. You and your small circle of forgotten women try to make yourselves invisible. You stay in your wing. You speak to no one. You draw no attention. Lyra, with her years of experience, becomes your de facto leader. Keep your heads down, she advises, her voice a low, urgent whisper. Do not choose a side. To be noticed now is to be seen as a threat or a pawn. Both are fatal. This period of instability after a ruler's death was a recurring feature of the Hellenistic world. The sprawling empires carved out by Alexander's generals were notoriously difficult to hold together, and a monarch's death was often the trigger for civil war, with sons, brothers, and powerful generals all vying for a piece of the prize. The harem, with its collection of illegitimate children, was a perpetual source of political dynamite. A new ruler's first bloody task was often to clean house, a chilling euphemism for political murder. The queen's first move is clever and cruel. She doesn't launch a direct assault on Lady Thea's chambers. Instead, she begins to isolate her. She cuts off the supply of fine foods and wines to her rival's household. She has the wells closest to her apartments declared unclean. She spreads rumors that the infant prince is sickly, that he inherited a weakness from his mother's barbarian bloodline. It's a campaign of psychological and logistical warfare designed to weaken Thea's resolve and undermine the confidence of her allies. The pressure mounts. One night, a fire breaks out in the stables where Thea's faction houses its horses. It's quickly extinguished, but the message is clear: nowhere is safe. You watch this brutal game unfold with a kind of detached horror. You feel a pang of sympathy for the Thracian woman. You once envied her, but now you see that her great victory bearing a son has become her death sentence. She climbed higher than any of you, only to have a much farther distance to fall. Your own obscurity, once a source of shame, now feels like a shield. There is a strange, bitter safety in being utterly unimportant. The end of the standoff comes a week later. There is no battle. In the dead of night, a single, piercing scream echoes from Lady Thea's apartments, followed by a deathly silence. The official story, announced the next morning by a grim-faced Bago, as is a tragedy. The grieving Lady Thea, in a fit of despair over the king's death and her son's supposed illness, had taken her own life and that of her child. It was a terrible, unfortunate incident. The palace would mourn her loss. No one believes it. Everyone knows it was an assassination, carried out with ruthless efficiency by the Queen's agents. But no one says a word. The threat has been neutralized. The path to the throne is now clear. The game is over. A chilling quiet descends on the palace. The Queen has won. The tension dissipates, replaced by a cold, universal fear of the new power. You see courtiers who had flirted with supporting Thea's faction now scrambling to prove their loyalty to the Queen, their faces masks of strained sycophancy. The brutal lesson has been learned by all the Game of Thrones, has no prize for second place. For the women left behind in the Guinea Siam, the message is even clearer. Your lives are entirely at the mercy of the new regime. You are ghosts of a past administration, and you are waiting to be exorcised. With the queen's power consolidated and her son, the new boy king, formally acclaimed, a chilling new phase begins the judgment. The new regime must decide what to do with the remnants of the old one. Specifically, what to do with the late king's extensive collection of women. You and dozens of others are now a logistical and political problem to be solved. The matron, ever the survivor, has seamlessly transferred her loyalty to the new queen. She receives her orders and begins the grim task of inventory and assessment. You are all summoned, one by one, to her office. It's not a negotiation, it is a sentencing. The process is brutally efficient and devoid of sentiment. The women are divided into categories, their fates decided by a cold, pragmatic calculus. The first category consists of the young and beautiful, the ones who are still considered valuable assets. A handful of these are selected to be absorbed into the new king's future household. It's a strange and morbid form of inheritance. They will serve the son as they served the father. For these women, the cycle of servitude simply begins anew under a new master. The second category is for the politically useful. These are the women who, like Amy Kiz, came from noble families in allied or vassal states. They cannot be simply discarded without causing a diplomatic incident. These women are to be returned to their families, sent back home in a gesture of goodwill from the new king. It sounds like a release, a dream come true, but the reality is more complex. A woman who has been a king's concubine is now considered used goods. Her marital prospects are ruined. She will likely live out her days in quiet seclusion in her family's home, a source of slight shame, a living reminder of their subservience to the throne. The third category is for the aged, the plain, the infertile, and the generally useless. The forgotten. This is your category. You, Lyra, and the others who inhabited the shadowy corners of the Guinea Sea are deemed to be of no further value to the crown. You are to be disposed of. This disposal takes several forms. Some of the older women are sent to a remote temple of Hera to live out their days as priestesses, a form of respectable exile. Others are married off to lower-ranking army veterans as a reward for their service, their small dowries paid by the state. And the rest, the ones for whom no other use can be found, are simply given a small pouch of silver and turned out of the palace gates to fend for themselves in the sprawling, indifferent city. Your turn comes. You stand before the matron's desk, the same desk where you were once told of the king's gift of jewels. She does not look at you as she consults her wax tablet. She sees your name, your origin, and the lack of any notable connections or children. Ionian, she says, her voice flat. No issue, no alliances. She makes a small mark on the tablet. You will be given a severance and dismissed. The palace has no further need of your service. And that's it. A decade of your life, your youth, your body, your service, all dismissed in a single, bureaucratic sentence. There is no thank you, no acknowledgement of your time, just a neat, tidy severing of the connection. You are being fired from a job you never applied for. You are given 1 day to prepare. You gather your meager belongings, a few simple gowns, the herbal remedies you learned to make from Lyra, and a small wooden box containing the gold earrings, then the lapis necklace from the dead king. You look at the jewels, once a symbol of favor, then a mark of your transcational value, and now they are simply your survival fund. The farewells are quiet and heartbreaking. Lyra, who is being sent to the temple of Hera, pulls you into a fierce, weary hug. Remember what I taught you, she whispers. Trust in the herbs, but trust in your own strength more. The hardest goodbye is with Amy Tiz. She is being sent home to Bactria, a journey of many months. You stand together in the moonlit garden for the last time. There are no sketches in the dirt tonight. You just hold each other's hands, your shared silence speaking volumes. She presses a small, intricately embroidered pouch into your hand. It contains a handful of dried petals from her homeland. For memory, she says in her soft, broken Greek, it's the most she has ever said to you. The next morning, you and a small group of other, dismissed women are escorted to a side gate of the palace, the same one used by servants and tradesmen. A stony-faced eunuch hands each of you a small, heavy purse. He does not wish you well. He simply unbolts the gate and gestures for you to leave. You step out from the shadow of the palace walls into the bright, chaotic sunlight of the city. The noise is overwhelming, the shouting of merchants, the braying of donkeys, the rumbling of cart wheels on cobblestone. After a decade in the rarefied, muffled quiet of the Gynecium, the sheer, unfiltered reality of the world is a sensory assault. You stand there for a moment, clutching your small bag of belongings and your purse of silver, a stranger in a city that has been your home for 10 years. You are free, but it is a terrifying, untethered kind of freedom. You have no family, no connections, no skills that are of any use in this world. You are a ghost of the palace, now trying to find a place to haunt in the world of the living. The gilded cage is gone, but you have been released into a wilderness. You find a room. It's not a chamber or an apartment, it's a room, small and square, on the second floor of a baker's house, overlooking a tiny, cluttered courtyard. The courtyard is not a manicured garden of silent, scheming women. It's a riot of real life. A stray cat sleeps in a patch of sun, children's toys are scattered near a well, and the air is perpetually thick with the warm, yeasty smell of baking bread from the shop below and the sharp scent of onions from a neighbor's cooking pot. The walls are not polished marble but crumbling plaster, and the sounds are not of distant lyres but of a baby crying, a dog barking, and a wife yelling at her husband. It is chaotic, messy, and gloriously, vibrantly alive. Your landlady is a stout, no-nonsense woman with flour permanently embedded in her eyebrows. She asks no questions about your past. She sees the heavy purse of silver, notes that you are quiet and alone, and simply names a price. You pay for 3 months in advance, and the room is yours. For the first few weeks, you do almost nothing. You sleep, you listen to the sounds of the courtyard, and you slowly, tentatively, relearn how to be a person in the world. You learn to haggle for vegetables in the market, to greet your neighbors with a simple nod, to not flinch at every loud noise. Your palace draining, the silent, gliding walk in the downcast eyes, makes you an oddity here. The other women stride, they shout, they laugh, with their heads thrown back. You are learning to take up space in the world again. The silver from the palace will not last forever. You know this. The fear of destitution is a cold stone in your gut. One day you take out the box with the king's jewels. You look at the glittering baubles, the price of your youth. You take one of the gold end of earrings, just one end, with a new kind of fear. You take it to a gem dealer in the merchant's quarter. He is a shrewd man, and he knows you are desperate. He gives you less than it's worth, but it is still less than it's worth. But it is still a small fortune, enough to live on for a year or more. You walk away feeling lighter, as if you have sold off a small piece of your gilded chains. With the immediate pressure of survival eased, you begin to build a life, a small, quiet one. You remember LYR's lessons. You start a small herb garden in clay pots on your windowsill. The bricklayer on the ground floor complains of an aching back, and you remember a poultice lyre taught you to make. You mash the herbs, and it helps him. The baker's youngest child has a cough that won't go away, and you brew a soothing tea of licorice root and thyme. Word spreads, not far, just within your small courtyard and the adjoining alleyways. You become the quiet woman on the second floor who knows about herbs. You don't ask for payment, but people leave you gifts: a fresh loaf of bread, a handful of figs, a small skin of wine. It's a simple, honest economy of mutual aid. Some nights, the past comes back to you. You wake up in a cold sweat, imagining you hear the summoning eunuch's soft footsteps in the hallway. You look in your small, cracked bronze mirror, and sometimes, for a fleeting, terrifying moment, you see the pale, painted face of the king's concubine staring back. You still have the single gold earring and the lapis necklace locked away in their box. You can't bring yourself to sell them. They are your final insurance policy. But they are also your scars, the last tangible proof of the life you survived. You think of the palace sometimes. On a clear day from a high point in the city, you can just see the gleaming white of its highest towers. You think of the women still trapped inside, of the new favorites and the new forgotten. You think of the boy king and his mother, the queen, and the endless, bloody game they are all still playing. Historians, you realize, will write about the reign of the king you knew and the one that followed. They will write of battles and treaties and royal lineages, but they will never write about you, or Lyra, or Amy Tiz. You are the footnotes, the silent, unseen women whose lives were the fuel for that great, glittering machine. You were a prisoner in a gilded cage. Now you live in a simple clay pot of a room, but the herbs you grow on your windowsill are your own. The bread you eat is earned through your own small acts of kindness. Your life is no longer a grand, tragic opera. It is a small, quiet folk song. And as you sit by your window, listening to the ordinary, wonderful noise of the world, you realize with a slow, dawning peace that you are finally truly free. Her story fades now, like a sketch in the dirt washed away by a gentle rain. The courtyard, the scent of herbs, the distant gleam of the palace, let them all soften and blur, dissolving into the quiet hum of your own room. The journey is over. You can let go of the shoreline of wakefulness and allow yourself to drift into the deep commotion of sleep. Feel the darkness around you, not as an emptiness, but as a soft, velvet blanket. It is a quiet, safe harbor after a long voyage. The memories of the story, the echoes of her life, can now become the substance of your dreams. Imagine them as whispers carried on the soft breeze from your fan, telling tales that no longer need to make sense, just to be. Notice the gentle weight of your own blanket, a comforting pressure that grounds you and tells you that you are safe. Notice the softness of your pillow, a silent invitation to release the day. Let go of all the thoughts, the plans, the worries. They are boats that have been tied up at the dock for the night. They will be there in the morning. For now, the tide is going out, and you can flow with it. The tiny noises of your own home become a lullaby, a symphony of peace. Let each breath you take be a wave, pulling you further and further from the shore, deeper and deeper into a restful, healing sleep. The story is done. Your only task now is to rest. The end of the article. Good night.